Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to the second channel video. Today I'm in San Francisco, California, because I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the most interesting states, at least from an outsider's perspective, which is California. California is the biggest state by population, the third largest by area, but in terms of the amount of culture exports, it's definitely the biggest, because the biggest tech capital of the world, it's here in California. The biggest filming capital, where a lot of movies and TV shows watched worldwide, all come from here. So today I want to give you some fun facts about the state to kind of explain some of the wild things about life here that maybe aren't shared across it. So we're going to start with the first fun fact about California, because this one still kind of blows my mind. So we're in San Francisco right now. Maybe you can tell by there's some painted ladies from Full House, I believe. The streets, they're super diagonal. Maybe you spot that from Sonic Adventure too. But you know, like this is you know, a city which is very widely shared in terms of the physical characteristics, but in terms of the income, you might not realize just how high income this is. So California has a much higher than average you know, income per person in the state, but in terms of San Francisco, it's even higher than the California average. So if you earn 116,000, you're not rich here. In fact, you're not only not rich in San Francisco. If you earn 116,000, you're not even middle income. You count as low income for statistical purposes. You qualify for a lot of forms of governmental assistance if you only earn 116,000. And to do the maths as to what that is per month, that's over $8,000 a month, which makes you on the kind of edge of like, this is you know, dangerous stuff. That is the wild level of San Francisco. But even if you're in the 0.1% of the world, you can be poor in the local standards, and maybe that makes you appreciate that even though we have somewhat of a global economy, some parts of it are very much different in terms of living standards, living costs, etc., etc. And yeah, San Francisco, one of the most expensive cities in the world consistently, and because this is kind of a geography channel, I can mention that part of that is because of the geographic constraints. If you look at San Francisco, it's bound on three sides by sea, although there's Oakland and there's San Jose and there's all these other cities around it. It's bound on three sides by sea, and it's a very big area that everyone wants to live in. The amount of new jobs always exceeds the amount of new houses, so the house prices raise at an absurd rate, which increases the price of everything else with it. So there's some fun facts to look at for that one. Let's move on to the second fun fact, which is that California has a really different demographic makeup to the rest of the United States. Not just in terms of the age, where because it has a lot of internal US migration, California tends to be a lot of younger in most of the cities, because there's so many young people moving here in search of job and pursuit. So internal migration is an interesting thing you might not realize, but also external migration means that this city is wildly different to the other ones. So for instance, the amount of Eastern Europeans you find here, really high. At the border, for instance, I had a Russian, Ukrainian, I had a man from Eastern Europe at the US border, which is the first time I've ever had that. But also, the number of East Asians in California is crazy high. And although that's probably obvious looking at a map, but like, oh yeah, this is the closest point in Asia, in San Francisco, over a third of the people come from some part of Asia, identify as Asian ethnically, and this is one of the first states where white is not the majority. Again, not that that's the assumed, default or anything like that, but it's interesting that in a lot of states, white is the majority, race, but in terms of, it's not rude by the way, but but white is the not the majority in this state. If you count Latinos as being in that category, but still a third of Asians, lots of Eastern Europeans. The ethnic makeup of this is so different to the rest of the US, and to me, that kind of fits the true definition of what people call the melting pot. So there's a fun fact we'll take it. Anyway, the next fun fact is. So before the next fun fact, this is the Golden Gate Bridge. It's, I mean, you're familiar with it, right? Or actually, this is rather a little bit of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's super foggy today, so you can literally see like the bottom half of it. Like the Golden Gate Bridge is wearing like an invisibility t-shirt. But anyway, with that said, let's mention the third fun fact, which is that California used to be one state. What is modern day Baja California in Mexico and Alta California used to be one combined thing. And interestingly enough about that is California used to be believed to be an island. One of the biggest cartographical areas of history was people believed that California was just an island separate from the rest of America. And this is not just many hundred years ago. As recent as 1800, this was something people still believed, which is a wild little fact by itself. But also interesting enough to me is the fact that going back in time to before there were super loud noises just behind me. But also interestingly enough, along the same vein, is the fact that California used to have a much smaller population. It's hard to think about today because it is the largest state in terms of population, in terms of economy, the third largest in terms of land area. But California used to be a state that was shrinking in terms of pretty much any measurable measure, because when it was first added to the Union, there was kind of two separate Americas. There was the East Coast America, there was the West Coast, and there was no real easy way between the two. It was a treacherous journey between the two, and it wasn't until they completed the Transcontinental Railroad, which meant that it would only take about a week to go from one to the other, that there was actually any realistic way that you could get from one to the other without a serious risk to your life and or belongings. So, fun fact for you right there, California is kind of the start of the East-West split. So my fifth fun fact about California is the fact that it really is so different within it, and again, any state that's going to be so big, you're going to expect that. But for a good example, the first biggest city, LA, is one of the most car-friendly cities in America. They've got like those 22 lane highways, etc. If you take like some of the rural areas, you'll see a lot of farming. California is most of the farming output of America. But then also you look at San Francisco, it's one of the most European transport options. So you've got stuff like this. It is a smart bike. You can pick it up with like Uber or anything like that. That's like that. It's pretty cool. I'm about to rent this, for instance. It's electric powered bikes, and it's one of the most bike friendly cities not only in America but in the world as well. And it's just kind of fascinating that like in the same state you have all of these very different things. And yeah, fifth fun fact, a lot of variants within the state that you might not realize. So let's type in our code and let's make this work. So I'm standing right now in front of some of the most American houses I've ever seen. They all have American flags out the front, and that's such a common thing here. I find it shocking. But to give you a shocking fact about California, did you know that California has the most populous county in America, as well as the largest by actual area? So largest by both counts, you can say largest by. But the thing that makes that so shocking is that San Bernardino County, which is the largest in terms of scale, is larger than a lot of sovereign independent countries. In fact, around half of countries are smaller than San Bernardino County, which is really, really wild when you start to think about the fact that, like, wait, so a subdivision of a subdivision because San Bernardino is part of California, which is part of America, is larger than a lot of countries. And yes, that's true. And the same is true with LA County, I believe it's called. The county has around 5 million people. That's larger than Latvia, that's larger than Estonia put together. In fact, that's larger than a lot of countries around the world, and it's just a subdivision of the subdivision of California. California is this huge thing. 40 million people makes it larger than most states around the world. It gives it, being the fifth to sixth largest economy, gives it a lot of power around the world, and that's because it is just huge by pretty much any metric. Huge by land area, huge by population, huge by GDP, and the fact that one of its counties is larger than a lot of states, and another county is larger than a lot of states by a different metric, shows that, yeah, it is basically its own thing that happens to be part of a much bigger thing altogether, which maybe helps you understand the scale of the US as a whole. So yeah, that's the thing. Golden Gate Bridge there. Sorry, I think this was like 2 days ago that I last saw that, but like it's not foggy anymore, so you can actually see it now. Pretty cool. Okay, goodbye. So, fun fact number 7, in case you're curious, I'm in the Qantas First Lounge. So the cool thing about this is that video I made where I mentioned the gold status. This is one of the things you can get in. So if you do a quick pan, you can see it's a pretty nice, cool lounge. Anyway, so I'm here at LAX, and I figured this would be a good opportunity to mention 2 fun facts about California as a whole again, because first of all is that this is actually one of the highest tax states in America. Something that's kind of mind-boggling to anyone who lives in a European country is that every single state of America has its own taxes, not just on rare unique things, but also income tax and also state tax. And in California they have the highest income tax and some of the highest state tax in the country. I find that interesting because you pay 10% on top of everything basically, which means that the price you get at the counter is just way different. It's a weird thing about America, and it's especially prevalent in California, where there are counties with over 10% total state tax once you add the county, the city, the state, and the government together. It's a kind of wild thing. So that's your 7th fun fact. And the last one today, one I find to be especially interesting, is to do with LAX. So this is LAX right here, in case you're curious, Los Angeles International Airport. And this airport is actually the 2nd largest in America. You would assume the 1st largest, or you assume it'd be like, oh yeah, so like it would surely be the 1st, right? LAX, it's famous. But the 1st largest is actually Atlanta, Georgia. But LAX is still really, a really interesting airport for its own bunch of reasons, with the major one being the fact that if you fly to LAX from another country, you'll get the full, service of an international carrier. However, within America, flights are known to be kind of sucky. In fact, right now we're about to take one to Las Vegas. It's going to be like a, kind of low-tier flight. However, if you fly from LAX to any major East Coast airport, usually it's Florida, I think also New York, all of the American carriers step up their game. For some reason, I think it's mostly to do with the Hollywood business. Maybe it's like, making sure that the actors / producers / directors, etc. But they use much bigger, high quality, etc. planes, all this sort of thing. So if you're flying from, America to America, try to fly via LAX and try to get something called an intercontinental route, because that's a thing you can get right here. Anyway, that's just a weird little plane fact, but I hope you all enjoyed the 8 facts about California today. If you did, then you know what, second channel. Okay, goodbye.